Hello, it's Nikki. Welcome back. Today's chat is about money. And I'm sharing this because I personally love these kinds of conversations. I want to go behind the scenes. I want to be part of the process. Essentially, I want to see the messy middle, a lot of life. I think it's too easy just to skip to the good bit, essentially, and do the before and after, and then no further questions. I think that we can all learn through the conversation. And so here I am today sharing this episode, which is titled, which still brings a bit of sick in my mouth because it was terrifying. What happened when I invested £9,000 into my own development? Here we go. What you'll get today is the process, the decision to go ahead, the panic, the commitment, the growth, and the shifts. And this is part 1 of 2. Part 2 will be live next week. On Tuesdays, I'm going to be talking about money. I'm not a financial advisor or an accountant, so please complete your own due diligence. I am simply here starting a conversation because for many years, I wasn't a participant. I was born in the 80s and a teenager in the 90s. And during that time, it was not polite to talk about money. Money conversations were usually started after an observation, a new conservatory that shot up out of nowhere, or a holiday destination that your neighbours have just come back from, one that is usually only reserved for game show winners, that not only left with 8-glass whiskey glasses and a lawnmower, but also a holiday of a lifetime. The currency in my school was led by your trainer choice and or your puffer jacket status, and also how far sexually you were willing to go, and how quickly. Throughout our career advice lessons, we were being gently guided into many sensible and safe decisions, even when they were in direct conflict with the person's skill set, personality, learning style. It was seemingly not the time to be who you were and embrace it. Quickly, I would be jokingly, although they meant it, referred to as a troublemaker, as I didn't tick their boxes. I made it clear that I would not be politely choosing an option from the list. I had other plans. I was never rude or disrespectful. In fact, my people-pleasing status was immaculate at this time, but I was focused. In hindsight, I have no idea where this inner knowing and unwavering commitment to my dreams came from. It wasn't as if I was seeing it was possible. I didn't have connections or an old family friend that worked at the BBC who could put in a good word. We didn't have the internet or social media. Even when I turned to Encarta 95 for help and advice, it would just churn out the history of theatre, which was interesting but not useful when it came to opening the next practical doors. Fast forward to 2000 and I moved to London. I went to drama school for the next 3 years. In the summer between my second and third year, I did something savvy, although at the time I had no idea how impactful it would be. During that time, I stayed in London and I worked in the West End, serving ice creams and selling programmes at Mamma Mia. I think I was the only person who wasn't excited when the film was released, mainly because I'd seen the first act approximately 79 times. I was surrounded by professional actors who were jobbing actors. They were auditioning, hustling, recovering, bitching, resenting, dreaming, etc., etc. It was a daily class in what happens next after you finish training. It gave me such a fire to maximise my third year. After a tricky second year, family stuff and ill health, I went back focused and ready. I got an agent from our West End showcase and 2 jobs back to back, which meant I left 5 months early. I was off and up and running, well, for a short time. And then I had to figure out the next bit. By the end of 2003, reality set in. The jobs had finished and I needed to figure out how I was going to stay in London, to be able to afford to live and be flexible enough to audition, and then if offered the job, accept the job at 5:55 p.m. and not let anyone down or lose the original job because the acting job was only for one day. I knew I had to take my own life and career seriously in order to make this work. I used to listen to my friends talking about taking a sick day because they were hungover, or client lunches that were basically an all-day drinking fest. At that time, I was very much in an era of only being paid when I worked. I would calculate the amount of money that I needed and then work out how many hours I needed to work in order to make that money. Again, I wasn't in conversations of growth or investment or owning property or abundant thinking. I was just surviving and hoping for the best. So I didn't have to go back to where I grew up and get a real job, like they said that I should. In 2012, I started my coaching qualification and it blew my mind. I officially and stayed in my growth zone. It occurred to me that I could change my situation. I didn't have to wait to be chosen or in season. I could be strategic and a creative thinker and make stuff happen for myself. Once I qualified in 2013, I was fizzing with knowledge and enthusiasm. Essentially, though, I had all the gear and no idea. My skill set was spilling over, but I didn't know the first way to monetize it. In 2013, I signed up to B School. I couldn't believe that I was paying £2,000 to someone I'd never met. And I still hadn't. Sorry about the noise, by the way, it's building work. But it was exactly what I needed. I found phrases such as lead magnet and customer avatar casually joining the chat, and I knew I'd found the right place. In 2014, I decided to go all in, to no longer be available for pay per hour and create my own work. It was scary and unknown, but exactly the right thing to do. Everything in me was whispering, jump, jump. Rationally, it didn't make any sense, and I was pre-kids, but I knew that I had enough resourcefulness and enthusiasm and my trusty Scorpio fire to make it work. 2 months later, in January 2015, I was pregnant with my son. I was delighted, but also so sick. The first half of the pregnancy was spent on my bathroom floor. I very quickly established that the way I previously worked, doing all of the things all over London, often for very little money, was no longer going to be possible or sustainable. During the years that followed, I found a flow and a rhythm that worked for me and my family. And I also was seriously sleep deprived. My son didn't sleep through the night until he was 3.5, and I had my daughter in 2019 who repeated the pattern. I'd had many knocks of confidence and big ugly cries. And at the time, it felt so hard and overwhelming. The dream of working for yourself didn't feel expansive. It felt exhausting. And I was constantly navigating how to be productive in nap times and make money in a consistent way. This is when the 7-figure business owner chat dropped. And to be honest, although inspiring, as I'd never heard people talk about money in this way before, it felt a long, long way from where I was in my current reality. And that really stung. P.S. I still haven't made 7 figures, but I know that I will. So I am grateful this was shown to me as a viable possibility. The ultimate example of, if they can, I can. I'd always invested in my business, one-on-one coaching, workshops, courses, masterminds, live seminars, books, membership, freelancers, etc., etc. You name it, I did it. I knew that I couldn't get to where I desired without support. In August 2019, I had my daughter. Sorry, it's really loud. In August 2019, I had my daughter and I felt a shift. I felt well and surprisingly full of clarity. I knew I was playing small and not reaching my potential at that time. I am carefully choosing not to say full potential, because my caring responsibilities for my family and myself were my priority day to day. That Christmas, I felt relief. After a complicated pregnancy, my daughter was here safe and well. I was full of gratitude. I spent some time considering what I wanted and therefore needed and began to seek out support. In January of that year, 2020, I signed up for a year-long coaching program to start in February 2020. It was the most amount of money I'd ever spent at that moment, which felt super scary. Fast forward to a few short weeks later, March 2020, suddenly that decision felt 10 times more scary with a layer of, oh shit, I have to make this work. People talk about investing in yourself like it's easy, as in making a lunch decision. Just make the decision and the rest will fall into place. I disagree, and I wanted to talk you through my process. I've recorded some videos on this where I go into detail of exactly the things that happen next. So read on, follow along, and see what happens in the next videos.